Hi guys, Sheldon here. I wanted to touch base. It's been a while, and I wanted to touch base just to provide some information on what's happening with the marketplace. I'm getting a lot of questions from homeowners and non-homeowners, and the number one question I get from homeowners is around house prices, right? So if you own a property right now, you're thinking, okay, what's going to happen to my property price? Is it going to fall, right? And what does this mean for me? And if you're not a homeowner, you're actually looking at this as a potential opportunity. So the number one question I get from folks that don't own a property or home right now is, oh my gosh, now is the time. Now there's an opportunity where I could possibly buy that house downtown Toronto for $250,000. That's an exact question that I get from non-homeowners, right? So people are hearing a lot of information in the news around house prices, and they're getting excited, right? If they're not in the market as yet. If they're in the market, they're now sort of a little concerned, in regards to what's going to happen. What does the future hold? So I wanted to share the April stats because those were released a couple of days ago from the Toronto Real Estate Board. And for me, when we talk about the real estate market, especially when you hear the real estate market in the media, typically they're talking about Toronto or Vancouver. Now, I'm not in BC, I'm in Ontario, so I'm going to focus on Toronto. But I want you to understand that this will be true across different areas that you're in. So there will be a general theme here. If you're in Peel or if you're in Dufferin County, or any other spot in the GTA. So the main thing to look at here on my screen is, I've kind of sort of break this up into, sales and the month of inventory and the days on market. For me, really, the most two important piece of data here is really obviously the sales numbers, right? As a realtor, that's really important. But even more important is the month of inventory. And not a lot of people talk about month of inventory, but that's really the most crucial piece of data for me as a realtor. So when we go back, to January, right? Things started off, started off slow in the January month, and we quickly saw that things were picking up, right? So the sales numbers got bigger in February, and they got even larger in March. And when you really think about it, the last 2 weeks of March were affected by the COVID-19, right? So those numbers that we're looking at is really for the first 2 weeks of March. March would have been a spectacular month had we not had this Armageddon that happened with the COVID-19 situation or crisis. So, and when we look at the month of inventory, that went from 1.7 in January to 1.2 to 1.3, and then now we're at a whopping 3.5. Now, what's the month of inventory? What the heck are you talking about, Sheldon? Think of the month of inventory as the amount of homes that are on the market and how long it would take, right, to sell all those homes on the market. So if no other homes went on the market, it would take us 3.5 months to clear out the existing inventory that's there. Now, the reason why month of inventory is important is because a lower month of inventory actually tells us that it's a seller's market. And the reason why is because if you're a buyer and you have less homes to choose from, then really you have less choices, right? So if you need to buy and you're a buyer and you have less choices, then what will happen is the sellers get to sort of, have the advantage in negotiating power. Now, if you are a buyer and you have more homes to choose from, then guess what? The roles become to switch pretty quickly. So if as a buyer you have a lot of homes to choose from, then you get to now, as the buyer, you get to now sort of dictate the terms, because more than likely if you don't find that home that matches up with everything that you're looking for, you'll just continue to look until you find that home, right? So as you can see, in January, it was higher than February. And then, we got a lot more sales that were on the market in March. So you'll notice that the month of inventory also adjusted accordingly. And then now you'll notice that it's the highest it's been, and it's up 166%, right? And when you look at even the sales numbers, though, the sales numbers are down. So I think a lot of the questions I get from buyers and even sort of homeowners or even non-homeowners is around the sales numbers. So I think a lot of times what people do is people hear that sales are down and they associate that with prices or home prices being down. But those are two separate things. So of course, sales numbers are down, right? Everyone is home right now, right? We're practicing social distancing. So it's obvious right now that the sales number would have taken a hit, right? Because if you're home with the kids and you're bunkered down, the last thing a lot of folks are thinking about is that, selling activity. So even if you were thinking of selling right now because you're home and because of what's happening around you, a lot of folks are saying, you know what, I'm going to put that off until later down in the year, or at least until there's a more positive news on what's happening, with this whole COVID-19 crisis. And that's what we're seeing now. So for me as an agent, it should be no surprise that the sales numbers have taken a hit, because a lot of folks are home and there's a lot of uncertainty around, what's going on. So that's why we have seen that drastic hit in regards to the sales numbers. The month of inventory has climbed again because of, the hit that we've taken in regards to COVID-19, right? There's just a lot of folks that are saying, hey, I don't know right now, right? There's a lot of folks that are laid off right now, that are waiting for that call back to head back to work. In the last couple of days, we see that, our government officials are trying to put some plans in place around how to reopen the economy. So all that sort of links together in regards to, what's happening with the sales numbers and the MOI numbers. Now, when I look at the next slide, when we talk about the total sales, I think this is a really good slide to pause on. And as you can see, sales are down. But as I said, that should not be a surprise in regards to the fact that everyone's home, everyone's bunkered down. But when you look at the average house price, you'll notice that, right, it's not fallen as most people think it is, right? So when we hear what's happening in the media, we immediately believe that home prices have gone down. Home prices are falling, right? It's the end of the world. But home prices are actually up, right? And so that's the most important thing that I wanted to get at, whether you're a homeowner or a non-homeowner. Now, this doesn't mean that home prices won't fall, right? But I think right now, as it stands, these prices haven't fallen to a sort of an apocalypse level like everyone thinks. Again, I literally get calls from folks saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm not in the market. I've always, I'm hoping that now I'll be able to buy that home for $350 or $250 or $450." So there's folks who literally call me saying, "Hey, there's a house that I want to buy in Brampton. It's listed for $650. Do you think they'll take $550?" And it's like, what are you talking about? Right. So I think this is what we have to differentiate between the sales numbers being down and average price of homes, whether it's down or up. The month of inventory, that's the most important indicator right now that we should watch for, because, if the month of inventory continues to trend up, then it does mean that prices could fall, right? Because again, you're now in sort of a buyer's market. And as you can see right now, the month of inventory is basically, it's the highest, we have seen this in a while when you look at, going back to 2017. So at this point, I think what will happen in the next little while, I mean, as I mentioned, our officials are, trying to come up with some plans to reopen the economy and to reopen certain business. So as, businesses reopen, right, and as people are allowed now to venture out, we might see, more activity real estate wise, more homes being put up on the market. I'm going to do another video that talks about